So we've come to the end of the course. It's been a very interesting 3 weeks for me. I've learnt a lot from you guys who are posting comments. We've covered various aspects. I wasn't expecting it to be like this, I have to admit, but in hindsight it should have been obvious. We sat down in, I don't know, May time, Madeline, Lisa and a number of others, and we thought, well, what can we do with this digital marketing course over a 3-week period? And we thought 3 hours a week, and we came up with a number of subjects that we thought would gel together. In hindsight, maybe it has been more than 3 hours a week, but I think that's because of the amount of contributions that people have made, and this maybe has come from the volume of people on the course, something that I wasn't necessarily expecting. To me, it's almost been a bit like a British wedding, really. To use an analogy, everybody turns up with one common element, the bride and groom, in this case digital. We never really get to see the bride and groom at a wedding, but the success of such an event, or whether or not you enjoyed it, is very much about the people that are around you, and I think in this case it's worked enormously well. I've seen some comments this week that I found quite amusing. I was looking this morning and there was a comment by someone called David about the changes in devices and technologies, and he brought up the subject of the mini disc, and that made me think a little bit, because if I look down, I have a whole box of unopened mini discs. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with them. I'll have to keep them now. In a similar vein, somebody did comment on the last video that we ran that they quite liked the fact that I showed the setup that I was using. So today, again, I'm sitting in my second bedroom, very exciting, but I'm also recording on an iPad, which is just to the left of camera, and with some lights set up, and in addition to standing against my wall. To be honest, I'm just sitting on a cushion, and I've chucked a green screen in the background, which is how I did the first video, so you can get an idea and we can see how the setup is. But it is pretty basic, but all the same it shows what can be done with a bit of hindsight. In terms of what have I learnt, I've learnt a lot about people, and I've learnt a lot about the contributions that various people can make. I said at the beginning of this course, right in the sort of introduction that we did, and to some extent it was an off-the-cuff remark, that there were no experts, and to some extent I stand by that. We've learnt from you. I think you've learnt from each other. I think this is such a fast-changing, fast-moving environment. I think there are so many things going on that it's very hard to say that you're an expert at everything. So I totally agree that there are those that will know about specific elements, but it's how we bring those elements together, especially in a business sense, to move things forward. We've covered lots about privacy, and there's been lots of talk about giving up information and not knowing what information that we do give up. But I would set a slight caveat that it's not all bad. These companies want to sell products to us. They want to do that over a long period of time, hopefully. They want to build a relationship. I don't see a problem with that. I think it's about acknowledging that the world is much wider now, and that we are seen from very many more angles than we may have been seen before. One of the things that has crossed my mind from having such a large group of people together is the value, possibly in research terms, that can be done through FutureLearn and other platforms such as this. One of the benefits is that we've got to reach out to so many different people. At the end of the day, universities survive, or they don't really make money in that sense, but they survive on the basis of their income, no different than any other not-for-profit type organisation, and some of that money is spent on research, some of that money is teaching orientated, and often when we are doing research, what we want to do is speak to the outside world, and this has become possibly a very good opportunity in the future to use platforms such as this to get contact with normal members of society, so that we can research in a much more open fashion, and possibly in a much more realistic fashion, rather than concentrating on what could be experiments within a controlled environment, because the world isn't a controlled environment. Clearly the feedback from week 3 and generally about the course, from what I can tell, has been incredibly positive. Some people asking, where is Mooc Digital Marketing number 2? I have no idea the answer to that question. I think we all need to recover from Mooc digital marketing #1, to be honest. These types of courses take an awful lot of effort, as I think you realise, to put together. And scoping what we envisaged was a 3-hour programme over a 3-week period, compared to an undergraduate or a master's course on-site at a university environment where, if the students are doing it properly, then I would expect 40 hours. You can imagine how we would scale up this type of online environment to an MSc programme which has sufficient merit. What's happened in this 3 weeks to me is we've gone into the engagement and the experiential side of it brilliantly. There are some people that would like more what I would describe as the how-to do things type Mooc in the future. I think that's something we could consider, but I also don't want to cross over into what I call the training type environment. The practicality side of some of these issues I think is handled fairly well if you're able to find it on the internet. From my own experience, this Mooc over the last 3 weeks has enabled me to set up an environment such as this. I've started doing courses on lynda.com for how to use certain elements of the video side of things that I've never done before. This is the first time that I've done a green screen and edited video. It's not something that I was particularly into, but I'm hoping to continue it and do other stuff on YouTube and carry it forward. I think what's really important is that we all take stock, we all learn from these experiences. I can bring this stuff into the classroom and into my teaching at the university, and I'm very much looking forward to doing that. I can also take things out to a wider audience, which again I think is important. And I think it's important that you guys take this back to whether it be your home life or your work life, to consider what issues we've covered and how we can materialise the thought processes that you've gone through. This 3 weeks has been very much about thinking and discussing and gaining an understanding of this environment, and I think that's very important. I suppose lastly I'd like to thank the other people on the course. This is my opportunity, so people like Lisa, people like Madeline, Mike. I'd also like to thank Kate. Nobody knows really much about Kate because she sits in the background, but without Kate nagging me, you wouldn't have got all of this stuff. It's been a wonderful experience. Thank you. It wouldn't have been the same without you. You can see by the comments. Imagine this Mooc with only 5 or 10 comments per episode, per task. We've had thousands of comments. You have very much made this your own. It's been incredibly tiring, and we've tried to contribute ourselves as much as we can, and I think that's vital. I fundamentally believe that if you're going to be a lead educator on something like this, then you've got to contribute as best you can. It's been incredibly fulfilling, but also an incredible amount of work. So it would be interesting to see how we can materialise these types of courses in the future that really do pay dividends both to the wider public and the university as a whole. We've just started a journey together. Now it's your turn to sort of follow that yellow brick road wherever it takes you, in a voyage of your own discoveries, and in a great way come back to us, report back to us. It's not difficult to find out who we are and contact us. Send us details of how you're getting on. Keep those communities going through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through Google Plus and others. It will be very interesting to see whether or not we're able to facilitate through this experience any changes and any successes in your own time in the future. So enjoy the Future Learn platform. We've certainly learnt things through this platform, and we will be feeding back on anything that needs adaptation. You've got a whole bunch of exploring to do now with some of the tools, some of the ideas, and the people that you've come across. So make the most of it.